Despite the many varying roguelike games that have released in recent years, Terrible Posture Games' FPS bullet hell Tower of Guns has remained one of my favourites of all. Why is that, you ask? Well, it has intense action, wonderful visuals that utilise the engine it was made on, massive amounts of replayability, a funny zany cast of randomised characters and plots, awesome enemies, and some of the most imaginative and crazy weapons you'll ever see. And let's not forget the equally as funky soundtrack to fit its smoothing theme. With all that said, it probably comes as no surprise that I've been looking forward to its follow-up, MOTHERGUNSHIP, so I just had to check out the demo. MOTHERGUNSHIP is an upcoming first-person shooter that is being developed by Grip Digital and Terrible Posture Games, along with also being published by Grip Digital. It is set to release on PC, Xbox One and PS4 July 17, 2018. Based on the demo, MOTHERGUNSHIP is bringing everything that made Tower of Guns great, while introducing a crafting system unlike anything you've ever seen before. In the demo of MOTHERGUNSHIP, you are the new recruit that is entering a combat simulation based on what you will be experiencing when you begin the attack on the alien MOTHERGUNSHIP, that being the full release of the game on July 17th. During the demo you get to try out the combat, see some enemies, and get your hands on the nifty gun crafting mechanic of the game, and a good taste of old-fashioned, over-the-top comedy. Let's start with the combat. In the demo you need to make your way through each chamber one by one, blasting all the enemies in them as they are getting progressively more difficult each time. At the start you will only have one basic Gatling gun and your left fist to use against the enemies of the chambers. You can build a second weapon for your left hand as you progress. The two weapons are assigned to the left and right mouse buttons, allowing you to use the two of them together. Each weapon has a battery meter. The more you use a weapon, the lower the battery becomes. If depleted, you will need to wait for it to recharge before you can use the weapon again. Having the two weapons allows for a small level of tactics when dealing with enemies. Do you use both weapons at the same time for maximum damage, or do you use only one until its battery runs out and then start firing the other, or perhaps you will work with a burst fire for both weapons. You will need to adjust your tactics depending on the enemies and the circumstances you're dealing with. It is really good stuff that separates the gameplay from a lot of other FPSs. The enemies you face come in all shapes and sizes, some of them making a visual overhauled return from Tower of Guns. From razor sharp flying saucers, massive multi-barreled turrets, small dinosaur robots, laser blasting spacecraft, and cannons with bullets nearly as big as the screen. Yeah, that is a scary sight to see coming directly at you. Each enemy has its own behaviour and attacks, and you need to adjust to it if you are going to get out of each chamber relatively unshaved. A major part of becoming wise with enemies is learning their attack patterns and fire rates, so you know when and where they are going to shoot. It adds a learning curve to the enemies, but it's also very rewarding when you begin dodging bullets as if you were the Flash. When you kill enemies, they drop blue shards that recharge your weapons, money that is used to purchase new weapon upgrades, and purple crystals that's purpose is yet to be revealed. There are also the occasional upgrades for your batteries, health, and the amount of times you can jump drop by enemies too. As to what and how much of each of these an enemy drop is completely random with each kill, so there is a level of unpredictability with each run. No matter how many times I played the game, the amount of money, upgrades and mystery crystals I received was completely different each time, and even for a small demo like this, it makes each run feel very refreshing. After completing a chamber you return to the entrance hall. Here you can purchase new weapon parts using the money you earn from enemies to redesign your weapons. The first of the weapon parts are barrels, which are the weapons themselves and include Gatling gun, shotgun, flamethrower, blaster and pulse box, which is essentially a giant destructive boombox. Each weapon has its own stats, including damage, rate of fire and how much energy they take up when in use. They also vary in size, which is a big factor when crafting a weapon, as barrels must be forward facing and other parts must not be hitting off another. Having the battery limitation results in you having to plan out what barrels you're going to use and how many you're going to have on each gun. Do you go for long shooting periods with less damage, or more damage but only fire off a couple of shots at a time, or something in between? It results in you having to identify the situation you are in and engineer the perfect weapon for it based on the parts available. Despite the limitations due to the battery power, the way that the weapon crafting is designed allows you to engineer pretty much any sort of design you want. With a little bit of practice along with stubbornness, there is bound to be some savage weapon combos that players will be able to make. Along with the weapon barrels, you have connectors that increase the size of your weapon and add new sockets for additional barrels. These are essentially what is used to make the main frame of your weapon that everything else is attached to, and they come in all shapes and sizes. The different connectors offer more than just simply adding new slots to the weapon. Due to their shape and sizes, they can turn a basic weapon into something quite fantastic. For example, what starts off as a simple everyday Gatling gun can, with the right connector, be turned into a triple Gatling gun. Of course, you don't have to just fill all 3 slots with Gatling guns. You can have one Gatling gun, a shotgun and a flamethrower, or any other mixed combo. Between the variety of gun barrels and the varying connectors, it allows for an unprecedented amount of customization that is only really limited by 2 things: your imagination and the practicality of using the weapon in combat due to the battery power. But even so, the crafting system remains one of the most impressive in a video game yet. Finally is what is referred to as caps. These are essentially upgrades that grant the weapon it is attached to bonus abilities such as ricochet, lava pools, along with increasing other stats such as rate of fire and damage. The caps can really change your gun, turning it from a standard machine of destruction into a lava placing, bullet ricocheting machine of evisceration. Just like the connectors and barrels, the caps add another layer of complexity to the crafting of your weapons, turning them from something already powerful into something that is utterly ridiculous. Overall, the weapon crafting in Mother Gunship is like nothing we have seen in a game before. Sure, there has been plenty of others that have allowed you to customize your items, armor and weapons, but never on the huge scale that Mother Gunship does. And if this is the complexity that the demo is showing, I can't wait to see just how many different weapon parts the full release has to offer. It is worth mentioning the demo is incredibly well optimized. Even with my PC, which will be considered around the minimum requirements for Mother Gunship, runs the game exceptionally well. Throughout the entire demo, no matter how chaotic the battle chambers became, I had little to no slowdown or frame rate dropping at all, which is generally quite unusual for games running on the Unreal 4 engine. I usually at some point get some sort of minor stuttering, and I was surprised to see that I had no issues with performance. So if you have a PC that has any sort of modern hardware, it should run the game with no problems at all. Then there are the characters in the game. In the demo only 2 are introduced, that being the Colonel and the Chief Gungineer Wilkinson. The Colonel is an eccentric, somewhat delusional, rambling sort of character that definitely comes from the universe of Tower of Guns. He is always the centre of dialogue and is capable of saying anything at any time, no matter the circumstance. Wilkinson, on the other hand, is the complete opposite to the Colonel. She's a lot more down to earth and sees things from what you would regard a normal human perspective. You often find both her and the Colonel digging at each other in some form or another. Regardless of whether or not she wants to listen to the Colonel, she must do exactly what he says and carry out any strange and unorthodox orders he may give, even if it is an order to bake a giant cookie made of cemented bullets. Individually, the 2 characters would be a bit overbearing. Wilkinson would be too dry, while the Colonel would be a bit too ridiculous. But when you have the 2 of them together, however, they bounce off each other very well, leading to some very comical moments as their very opposite views and personalities clash. It is great character design and very clever writing that few games ever get right, and it is something that anyone familiar with Tower of Guns will be very accustomed to. Overall, the demo to Mother Gunship is more of a demonstration of the crafting than anything else, which, as I've already established, is incredible. As for the combat, based on what I've experienced so far, it is good old-fashioned, fast-paced, twitchy, bullet-hell first-person action that fans of Tower of Guns are going to enjoy immensely. And the humour that was present in Mother Gunship's predecessor has certainly made a return here, despite the visual and tone change. If you love humour, fast-paced action, crafting your own wacky weapons and tons of bullets flying at you from all directions, then Mother Gunship is definitely going to tick all of your boxes. Throughout the demo of Mother Gunship, there is a great track playing in the background that fits so well with the theme and tone of the game. It contains a blend of heavy rock with a slight tone of techno and synth, while in the entrance chamber the track slows down to a calmer version with light guitar, synth and bangs to fit with the peaceful area. But once you get into the combat, it is kicked into overdrive with the guitar going straight into 5th gear while the techno vibes take the back seat. It fits in really well with the overall design and theme of the game. It is action packed and full of attitude, just like the game itself, and it really sucks you into the moment that you are present in. When calm, you become absorbed into the engineering of your weapon, but its tone leaves a sense that action is only around the corner. And when packing a punch, you get sucked right into the action, and it works so damn well. The only issue I would have with the soundtrack of the game is that when in combat, it becomes drowned out by the sound if you have the 2 sound settings equal to each other. Lowering the gun and explosion sounds a little bit would definitely help fix this minor problem, as they are way too loud and drown out everything else. The overall sound volume of the game is also very low in general. If you decide to play another game afterwards, be sure to turn down the volume as the difference will blow your eardrums out. But aside from that, the overall atmosphere and the soundtrack to the game is excellent. Out of all the releases and upcoming games in 2018, I think Mother Gunship is the one that I'm most excited for so far. Its predecessor changed up the roguelike formula quite a bit in many regards, while not taking the focus away from what made a game an actual roguelike. At a time where the genre was having a massive boom, Tower of Guns wasn't afraid to be the weird kid of the block. Mother Gunship is looking like it's taken that to a whole new level. Not only is it a game that is beautifully weird in almost every way, but it is innovative and introducing the most complex weapon crafting system we have seen to date. From the demo, it is showing that this new crafting system isn't just a novel selling point, but rather implemented in a way that affects the gameplay in major ways, and it works splendidly well. So if you enjoy good old fashioned fast paced FPS action, big fucking guns that make Doom's BFG look like a Nerf gun, dodging bullet showers, good humour and games that are a bit different and weird, then MOTHERGUNSHIP is a game you need to add to your wishlist. With it releasing on July 17th, there isn't long to wait, and with an asking price of $24.99 US, it is a fair price to pay based on the demonstration it is given.